Koji pulls up 2 blocks away from the Sakisaka house and stares at the silent building. In the bright light of morning, the house seems shrouded in a dark miasma, like a black hole torn out of the landscape. Is it just a figment of Koji's imagination? Every window is closed, offering no glimpse of the inside. Koji has no way of knowing whether Fuminori is home. A pedestrian walks his dog down the street, glancing back at Koji after he passes by the accord. Koji is surprised by the attention. He hasn't bathed or changed clothes since spending the night buried in mud, so he must look like a vagrant even inside his car. When he looks into the rear-view mirror, he sees the haggard visage of a man with 1 foot in the grave staring back at him. It's hard to believe that the tired, unshaven face is really his. If he stays here for too long, someone might report him to the police. He had better pull himself together and get moving. He drives slowly up to the front of Fuminori's house, quickly checks to make sure no one is around, and gets out of the car. Anyone who might be in the house probably heard the sound of the engine, but there is no point in worrying about that now. Koji walks swiftly through the gate and yard to the front door. He puts his hand on the doorknob, foregoing the bell. The time for such pleasantries has passed. The door is unlocked and the knob turns easily in his hand. He puts his ear to the door and listens for any sign of life. He's acting like a thief, he realizes with some shame, but that is the least of his worries now. No sound from within. After checking the street again to make sure no one is looking, he quickly opens the door and disappears inside. An indescribable stink immediately assaults his nostrils. He is already prepared for anything. However, so rather than discourage him, the stench only sharpens his caution to a razor's edge. He has crossed this threshold many times in the past, and his memories of days spent here are still bright. So why? Why does he feel the same ominous blood-chilling aura that permeated Ogai's home and cabin? Anger and sorrow seize Koji's heart, as though a dear friend's grave has been defiled. Koji doesn't remove his shoes before entering. He knows why he's here, and it's not to be polite. Every storm shutter is closed, filling the house with gloom, and he can see nothing but pitch-black darkness through the open doors in the hallway. He should have brought his flashlight from the car, he thinks ruefully, then remembers that he dropped the light when Fuminori attacked him. It's still lying in the backyard of the cabin in Tochigi. The house might be empty, then again, it might not. Each particle of the air seems charged with silent menace. Is his enemy lurking somewhere in the darkness? It's not hard to imagine Fuminori waiting for a chance to take him by surprise and finish what the well failed to. Koji walks down the first floor hallway, then climbs the stairs and checks the second floor too. He moves slowly and carefully, keeping his senses sharp, but feels nothing watching him from the shadows. After completing his round safely, he is convinced that the house is empty. He suddenly realizes that his right hand is touching the cold steel of the gun in his pocket. Did he intend to draw the weapon upon encountering Fuminori? Now that Koji thinks about it, his own actions seem mysterious to him. What is he planning to do when he meets Fuminori? Will he lay into him with curses and epithets? Will he force him to turn himself in? Or will he... Koji shakes his head. This isn't the time for such hopeless questions. If he keeps thinking, he'll stop moving. If he stops moving, fear will paralyze him forever. His only choice is to keep marching on. He has to close the distance to his prey. In any case, Fuminori isn't home. What form their reunion takes will probably be decided at the moment of their meeting. All Koji has to do is not hesitate when the time comes. Still, why does the whole house smell like stagnant water? It's been 3 months since Fuminori distanced himself from his friends. Just what kind of life has he been leading all this time? Koji enters the living room and feels along the wall for the light switch. The moment he flips it on, the answer to his question is revealed. How far has Fuminori gone? Koji realizes that this is the first time he has encountered Fuminori's insanity in visible form. From the dust piled in the corners of the room, it is clear that the paint was not applied recently. How many nights has Fuminori spent surrounded by this maddening array of color? Why, if such obvious signs were available, why didn't Koji realize that something was wrong before it got this bad? Was he deaf to the dying screams of Fuminori's sanity? Was their friendship really so worthless? As he stands petrified in the unfamiliar living room, Koji directs his anger entirely at himself. If he could, he would like nothing more than to apologize to Fuminori for failing to help him through his suffering. Koji feels that he might have been able to save his friend. Perhaps he is arrogant to think so, but if so, it is arrogance born of kindness. Koji passes through the living room and opens the sliding door that leads to the kitchen. When he enters, he finds that the most disturbing of the house's many stenches is strongest here. Blood. The room is redolent with the smell of countless layers of blood grown stale over time. He peers into the well-used sink. Around the rim, he sees faint brownish red blotches that water alone couldn't rinse off. Even more obvious are the stains on the dish rack. Such stains are proof that the rack has been used and reused countless times, but what could it have been used on to make it that sickening burgundy color? Koji stares at the refrigerator next to the counter as though it were a monster waiting to swallow him whole. He stands motionless until he is able to work up the courage simply to touch it. Then he steels himself, grabs the thick handle and opens the door. First he'll check the freezer, then the refrigerator. The freezer is packed with frozen meat of varying shapes and sizes. As each piece is wrapped tightly and frosted over plastic, he can't tell what kind of meat it is. The meat in the refrigerator, however, has already been thawed for consumption. Blah. For a while, he can only stare in disbelief at the 5 fingers beckoning to him from the back of the compartment. They are the long, slender fingers of a woman, their bluish tinge giving them the appearance of waxworks. Koji is unable to remember what Omi's hands looked like, even though he has kissed her fingers countless times. When he finished crying after his conversation with Fuminori, Koji promised himself that he would not cry again, and in fact, he does not. He regrets his decision, however. He indulged himself too early. He should have saved his soothing tears for this moment, for now he knows that truly nothing is sacred. At last, his doubts about Fuminori have been utterly obliterated. Koji pulls Ogai's revolver out of his pocket and wraps his hands around its grip like he would a charm. Its definite presence, its promise of merciful annihilation, is the only thing keeping his sanity intact. He will surely use it to kill Sakisaka Fuminori. Not for revenge, not for justice, but to make this world once more a place governed by reason. For that purpose alone, he must eliminate the anomaly. He breathes deep, exhales, then lifts his hand before his face and stares at his spread fingers. Alright, he's not shaking. He's prepared to face his new objective. Koji sticks the revolver back into his pocket and pulls out his phone. What? A choice? It's like the role of the protagonist switched from Fuminori to Koji. Who should we call? Fuminori or Ryoko? You know, I'm not sure if he alone could do something about Saya, so I think he would need some help. So I'd say we call Ryoko. Yeah, let's do that. Let's call Ryoko. The ringing of her cell phone interrupts Ryoko's labors. When she sees that the caller is Tono Koji, she unwittingly breathes a sigh of relief. Even over the phone, Ryoko can hear the change in Koji's tone. His is the dull, flat voice of someone who has had all the energy beaten out of him. Well, it was actually Saya, but oh well. His first steps into Ryoko's world have already brought him face to face with something particularly gruesome. In consideration of his probable state of mind, she decides to say nothing. Ryoko says, praising Koji in her own way. Whether he is comforted or not is up to him. With her understanding of Saya deepening by the hour, Ryoko is able to make this declaration with new confidence.
きてることを知ってます。誰に助けられたかまでは教えてませんが、ともかく奴は警戒してるはずです。
そうか。
Koji's actions were rash, but there's no point regretting them now. The constructive approach would be to use the pressure that he's placed on Fuminori. Ryoko's involvement is still a secret that makes her a wild card. Depending on how she plays it, this advantage could be decisive.
先生の方は何か手がかりをつかめましたか？
まだ十分な量とは言えない。
Ryoko answers, glancing sidelong at the loose-leaf pages still scattered across the table.
そうだね。夜までには目処をつけて、夜半には東京に戻ろう。それまで君は余計なことをせず、おとなしくしている。
はい。
The lack of emotion in Koji's voice is actually reassuring to Ryoko. He is a machine now, able to do whatever it takes to accomplish a single goal, the extermination of Sakisaka Fuminori. He is even willing to accept help from Ryoko, whose principles hardly mesh with his. A praiseworthy change indeed. After Ryoko hangs up, she gloomily counts the stacks of loose leaf that still need to be restored. There's no time left, she'll probably only be able to get the general picture. If she has to go into battle with only fragmentary knowledge, then there's one thing that she absolutely must decipher: Ogai's biological reports, which should contain information on the strengths and weaknesses of the organism called Saya. All she can do now is pray for luck as she dives back into the mountains of paper. Today was the first time I've driven since my accident last summer. The proposition was always too dangerous to consider, given my inability to recognize roads and cars. Things have changed, however. In the 3 months I've had to adapt to my condition. I know what cars and pedestrians look like now, and even though I can't exactly see colors, I've learned to decipher lights and turn signals. I still can't read street signs, of course. Nevertheless, I managed to make it safely to our destination with Saya and Yo in the back seat. It was Saya who came up with the idea for our new hideout, an abandoned building she discovered while living with Dr. Ogai. In these hilly suburban residential areas, it's not hard to find thick patches of undeveloped forest just off the beaten path. Saya's old playground is located in one such secluded area, unaffected by the flow of everyday life. It used to be a privately operated sanatorium hidden among the silent trees. After the owners went bankrupt, it remained unsold and was eventually forgotten. After I left Saya and Yo at the hideout, I returned to town to make some preparations. Now I'm finally back at our new refuge. I like this ruin from the moment I saw it. Mountains of construction materials and garbage litter the front yard, forming a serviceable barricade. This place looks even less likely to receive unwanted attention than our house. Since my brain sees humans as revolting monsters, places they've been tended to stink or seem covered in filthy slime. Ruins like these, long empty or of life, are the places I find the most restful. Doesn't look any better though. I call out to let them know I'm not a stranger. Then I go down to the basement where they are hiding.
おかえりなさい。車平気だった？
もう全然問題ない。一方通行の標識もどういうのか分かったし、スピードさえ出さなければどこを走っても大丈夫だよ。で、そっちは？
一通り調べたけど、やっぱりあれからずっと人が来た様子はないみたい。ここは安全だよ。
そうか。ならいいんだけど。
I'm a little worried that this abandoned building could become a hangout for biker gangs or homeless people.
多分表に積み上げてあるゴミのせい。あれ普通の人間にはちょっと耐えられないんじゃないかな。
It doesn't bother me at all. I rather like it in fact, but of course normal people would feel differently.
で、文則の買い物はいいの見つかった？
ああ、もちろん。
Next! I proudly unwrapped the weapon I just bought from a camping goods store, a 1 meter long wood axe, the biggest and sturdiest I could find.
刃渡り15センチ以上のナイフは銃刀法違反だなって張り紙してあるのに、その隣でこんなもの売ってるんだよ。お笑いだよね。
I grip the axe with both hands, testing its dependable weight, then swing it like a baseball bat. The deadly steel blade sweeps through the air right where a person's neck would be. Yo, who's sprawled out on the floor, flinches at the sound and curls herself into a ball.
切れ味とかどう？用で試してみたら？
What?
いや、それはちょっと。
I definitely wasn't expecting Saya to suggest anything so brutal.
心配いらないよ。今のようの体だったら刃物とかの傷は割と簡単に治っちゃうから。
Really?
いや、それにしたって痛いだろ。
そっか。うん、そうだね。
It must have slipped her mind completely. She smiles at the oblivious Yo as if to hide her embarrassment, then says,
でもさ、痛くされた時のようの声って、それはそれで可愛いよね。
いや、やっぱり人間に斧で切りかかるってのは気が引けるよ。
そうなの？じゃあ、コウジさんは？
well, he looks like a monster to him, so he probably doesn't consider him human.
そりゃだって、
It should be obvious, but I guess that Saya still doesn't understand.
奴は僕には人間に見えないから、切ろうが潰そうが平気なもんさ。
そんなに違うんだ。
そうさ。人間には良心があるからね。どんなに憎い人間だろうと、人を殺すと思うとブレーキがかかるもんだ。そこが僕の称賛でもある。
本当に？
Saya seems awfully subdued. I guess she's concerned about what will happen when I have fit out with Koji.
体格じゃあいつが上だし、普通に喧嘩したんじゃ勝ち目は薄いかもしれないけどね。でも僕にとっての化け物退治があいつにとっては人殺しなんだ。こいつは大きいよ。あいつはきっと最後の瞬間で隙を見せる。
なんだか不安なんだよね。そういう心理戦っていうの確実じゃないっていうか。
Saya says softly, staring at the floor with unusual gravity. She raises her head and looks straight at me.
ねえ、やっぱり私が買った方が良くない？
I appreciate Saya's consideration, even though it could be interpreted as a lack of faith in me. She's still putting my safety above hers. Nevertheless, I can accept her heartfelt suggestion.
サヤの腕力だとさ、ヨウみたいな女の子なら楽にねじ伏せられるだろうけど、男を相手には厳しいと思うんだ。
The bitter memory of Saya's rape is still fresh in my mind. Saya falls silent for a moment, seeming to understand what I'm thinking, but then comes right back to stubbornly press her case.
でもね、あのおじさんも最初の不意打ちはうまくいったの。大抵の人間はね、作用を見たら力が抜けて動けなくなっちゃうんだよ。病院だってそうだった。平気で話しかけてきたのって文則だけだよ。
まあ、それも一理あるかもな。
I can't imagine it personally, but I suppose it's possible that Saya's appearance is shocking enough to make someone lose their nerve. Suzumi was able to gain the advantage because he had the same condition as me, which let him see Saya as a cute girl. Fear doesn't necessarily make people weaker, however. Depending on the situation, it can even send someone into a berserk rage and make them harder to put down. In other words, such a tactic would be the same sort of gamble that Saya's worried about.
じゃあさ、サヤ、こういうのはどうだろうか。
When I tell Saya the new plan that just popped into my head, her gloomy frown turns into a bright smile.
それめえやん。文則って頭いい。
What is his plan?
何もそこまで。
Well, it's not exactly a great plan, but I guess the fact that it lessens the risk to me is enough to excite her. She's so easy to please, but that's part of what makes her so cute.
で、いつ頃来るの？
わからない。いずれ奴の方から電話があるだろう。そしたらここに誘い出して仕留める。
Koji will come. I know that he won't leave us alone. We could just keep running now that we've started, but I want to eliminate Koji as soon as possible. Therefore, when he contacts me, I intend to meet with him unless it's an obvious trap.
せっかく人間一人分の肉が仕入れられるのに、ここだと腐らせちゃうね。
他の動物を誘う餌にできないか？野良猫とかカラスをおびき寄せてさ。
それ危ないよ。 万が一取り逃した時よそに持っていかれて他人に見つかったら大騒ぎになるよ。
そっか。
Humans are extremely dangerous, and their filthy, stinking bodies make me sick just by being nearby. Ironically, however, nothing tastes better than their meat. I truly regret having to abandon our well-stocked fridge.
まあこの辺だと森にもいろいろと住んでるからそんなに食事には困らないんじゃないかな。
3人分だよ。大丈夫かい？
任せて。これでもさや狩りは得意なんだから頑張っていっぱい捕まえてくるよ。
そうか。じゃあ今日からはサヤが一家の大黒柱だな。
へへ。
Saya giggles happily at my praise. I find these childish qualities of hers adorable.
今度はどのぐらいのんびりできるかな。
Because of the casual way she says it, I almost miss the emptiness to which her question leads.
どのぐらいかな。
Saya's right. This won't last forever. No matter how safe this hideout might seem, we will have to abandon it eventually. The slightest mistake could put our life together in jeopardy, just like when I failed to silence Koji. Some dumb kids might decide that this old ruin is a good place to test their courage, or this land might be targeted for new development. In order to be together with Saya, I have chosen to live apart from society. We will never find lasting peace in this world teeming with humans, not unless we can somehow escape from it.
長い旅だと思えばいいさ。
I pull Saya into my arms and fold my hands around her slender shoulders, then whisper,
どうせ人生なんて旅みたいなものなんだ。永遠に変わらない場所なんてない。時の流れを見送るか、自分自身が流れていくか、それだけの違いだよ。
getting all philosophical and shit.
そうだよね。
Saya smiled softly, perhaps in resignation, perhaps in sadness. Either way, there is peace and contentment in her expression.
それでも一人ぼっちじゃないしだからさやは寂しくなんかないよ。
ああ。
I have no regrets. As long as I can hold Saya in my arms, I will gladly pay any price.
それにね、
She adds brightly, trying to cheer me up.
いつかは私たちが人目を忍んで暮らさなくてもよくなる日がきっと来るよ。それは約束してあげるから。
What, is she planning to annihilate humanity or something? It sounds like a fairy tale, but for some reason she seems absolutely certain.
それは明日かもしれないしずっと先のことかもしれない。いつ印が来るのか私にもわからないの。初めてのことだから。
The sign? What's she talking about?
ほんのちょっぴり怖いんだけどね。
I have no idea what Saya's prophetic words mean, but this isn't the first time that she's said or done something mysterious. She's performed any number of miracles already.
僕らにも希望があるのかい？
She says with a cheerful nod.
きっとそれがさやが文則に送ってあげられる最後のプレゼント。さやの最初で最後の務め。